Welcome back to West Texas View.
We ended the last segment talking about the Color Dash, one of the fundraisers that happened yesterday. And so, were we through with the Color Dash,
yeah, well,
or did we have something else?
One last little piece that actually segues into mental health and what contributes to good mental health. One of the things we loved about the Color Dash is getting out and exercising and having fun.
Yeah.
And both of those are huge things that contribute to good health. It lifts our mood, it sharpens our brain power, it increases self-esteem, helps us cope with things. There's been studies that actually show that just walking 30 minutes a day has the same efficacy as taking a low-dose antidepressant. And so anyway, exercise is a great way to improve our mental health.
And so you integrated that into your Color Dash program.
Yes.
But that is so important. You know, my physical doctor told me one time that exercise was the magic potent to anything that was mental or physical health. And so I've really believed that all these years.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I have an insurance that pays my YMCA membership in order to force me or not give me an excuse not to do a regular regimen of exercise. Okay, I love what we said, but talk a little bit about what contributes to mental health.
Well, the mental health, let me say this as far as why May is Mental Health Month. It was started about 66 years ago. An organization called Mental Health America is the one that has been pushing this. And they came out with some facts and figures which I was not aware of until I started researching some of this. But 1 out of 5, that's 20% of American adults, will have a diagnosable condition during the year. So, I mean, you know,
it's essentially
viewers,
all of us.
Yes, and
one year or another.
in fact, half of all Americans will have a diagnosable disorder at some point during their lifetime. And so, and that doesn't mean that you're crazy, but it may mean that you're suffering from some kind of depression or some kind of anxiety, something like that, which is far more common.
Or stress that has made you so depressed that you are not functioning.
And part of the purpose of Mental Health Month is to raise the awareness of some of the signs and the symptoms of this so that people can be proactive and address it before it gets worse. Because all too often, we'll start feeling kind of blue or a little low or something like that, and we just kind of write it off. Well, that may be just the infant stages. And if we don't keep track of it, it can worsen and it can get to the point to where it interferes with our quality of life. And then it can even progress to where it messes with our thinking and our behavior and our relationships and our jobs and our homes and our families.
And our feelings about ourselves.
Exactly.
But one of the things that we need to also remind everybody is that there's no age limit. It can happen to the very young, it can happen to the very old.
Exactly.
In fact, depression is one of the big problems in people my age, senior citizens. And
yes, exactly. We're watching too much national news and not enough Johnny Lou.
Oh, well, that's a very complimentary thing. But this is one of the things that we need to say is your awareness of your own mental health is as important as your own physical health. And
exactly.
we've just not been educated to think in those terms, and that's the reason for Mental Health Awareness Month.
Some people may be asking, well, what are these warning signs? What do I need to be looking for? And they're very simple, like, is there changes in your sleep patterns? Are you feeling tired or worthless or low or sad or anxious or worried? Are there changes in your eating patterns? You're eating more, eating less. Are you being more sensitive to things, more irritable?
Have your feelings hurt?
Have you had a loss of interest in things? And then it can even get to the point to where you start getting forgetful, or maybe you start hearing things or thinking things, and people say, what? And no, I didn't hear that. And so those kind of things, one of these things isn't something to call 911 about. But if you start seeing several and more in a pattern, or if it gets progressively worse, then it's good to just kind of check it out. And so what we would encourage people to do is, talk to their primary care physician and saying, I've been feeling kind of low, and the primary care physician is trained to explore that and may say, well, you should talk to somebody, or maybe they might prescribe some kind of low dose antidepressant. And what I tell people is, the pill doesn't take the problem away, but it will oftentimes take the edge off of the symptoms, so that you can take on the challenge of whatever it is that's going on in your life.
And make yourself go and get professional help. One of the things that I've learned is that I've noticed among employees particularly is that when they start not having the gumption to get up and do what they usually would just jump up and do, they just can't make themselves get up and move, and they just keep holding back. And they'll say Blue Monday's lasting all week or something like that.
And that's perfect time. The other part of symptoms is relationships, depending on how their relationships are going. And I would encourage people to really listen to those people close to them, because the people closest to us are the ones that really know and can see that we're getting down or anxious or having some of these symptoms. Sometimes we have that going on. It's been so subtle for so long, we don't even realize that we've got a low-grade depression, or even a deeper one. But some of that will be reflected in relationships, and whether we want to withdraw from folks, or
sometimes our family knows more about
That's
us than
exactly
we do
right.
ourselves.
True.
You can't see the forest for the trees, but they can see that you're irritable or that you're just almost immobile.
Right.
And that's not you. And so they'll say, there's something wrong.
And if you're feeling, sluggish and down, it may not necessarily be a mental health issue. It might be you have, low thyroid or something, but it still shows up.
And that's
like a mental
something you
health
want to
issue.
check out.
Sure, exactly. And when should you see a professional therapist? Well, I tell people, if it starts interfering with your quality of life, then you really need to get it checked out.
And that's a perfect way to say this is time to lay the knife down and go make an appointment. We're going to have to take a break now. We'll be back in just a minute and continue this conversation. Okay, now this is the last.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.